really think that you're better off not knowing, you will lose your history. And you'll leave it to somebody else to come in and write something that they call history but is a bunch of lies. This is about what you, the viewer, you, the reader, get to see.
You're given this privilege to document history. You have 1/500th of a second to capture a moment in time and then show the rest of the world. You know, you have that opportunity to document history, a regime as it's collapsing, countries dividing, whatever it is, and show the rest of the world what happened.
Your job out there is to report the truth, report what's going on, and try to get the complete picture back to the people in the United States about what is happening.
Reporters, we've got to be the eyes and ears of the people. We've got to show you what is going on out there. And if we're unable to do that, then something is lost. And we're not living in the free society that we should be.
The military budget is about 1/3 of our national governmental expenditure. So we have the national treasure at stake. 1/3 of taxpayers' dollars paid to the federal government go to the military. And secondly, it is the sons and daughters of the American people who become our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So we have the national treasure in terms of dollars and the national treasure in terms of people that are at stake. And for those reasons, I believe the American public deserves to have the best reporting it can get about its military.
There was a lot of hand-wringing during and after that embeds were only going to see a small piece of the war. And to me, it's naive to think anything otherwise. That's what privates see, that's what sergeants see. They see a small slice of the war, what's out in front of them. It shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone that the guy out on the front lines with the 3rd Infantry Division is not going to be able to write the big sweeping picture of what's going on.
We have a tremendously independent press. It's what our democracy is built on, that health of free information to the people. And that's what we fight and defend. So, you know, it's important for people to know that that independence really is always there. And it's a good bellwether, I think, for them to help make their judgments on whether they support or don't support something that goes on. So I think that's what's important for people to know, is they did get a huge insight into the battlefield, even if it was various soda straw views.
I personally believe that one of the most important beats that journalists can cover is the military. And for at least a decade, that beat has gone neglected, is probably the best word I could choose.
I think really beginning with the war in Vietnam, there developed a adversarial relationship between the media and the military and the U.S. government. Because, as we know, the Vietnam War was reported in living rooms of people on television with graphic accounts in newspapers.
The Army in particular felt that the news media exposures of battles and deaths in Vietnam led to a loss of public confidence at home, so that essentially it was the protesters against the military, and that the media, in the minds of the Army, cost them the war.
The attitude back then was, very much shaped by a generation of officers who had come up through Vietnam and, to put it bluntly, saw the media at best as a nuisance, but at worst as the enemy.
When we were in Vietnam, if you're with this company and you hear that another company is engaged, we could break away and get over to them if it were physically possible. I didn't see any of that in Iraq. I mean, you were with the unit and that was it. You're stuck with them. Something else is going on down the road, and I heard several of the correspondents say this, we know there's a battle down here, but we can't see it from here. I don't know, maybe it was just coincidental, but it seemed like there were a lot of battles with units that did not have embedded correspondence with them. For all the people that were in the field, all the camera crews and everything, I saw very little of what I would call real combat footage.
No, it's really inescapable to spend any amount of time with U.S. military forces in the field and not walk away with a sense of how well trained, how well equipped, and how well led U.S. military forces are.
Before the war, I was outside talking to a soldier. He asked me who I was going to be embedded with, and I said, I'm going to be embedded with 3-7 Cavalry. And he kind of stopped for a second and paused and looked at me. He says, "You have balls of steel." You know, and I looked at him, I said, "Why?" He says, "Those guys are crazy." He said, "If you want it, you're going to see it when you're out with them." And we saw it. I mean, after about 2 days of the war, it was nonstop combat every day. Bullets ricocheting off the Bradley. The Humvee that I was riding in had a bullet hole that went right into the trunk halfway through the Humvee. So it was a pretty intense unit to be with.
After a few days of sort of butting heads with the commander and the staff, we were able to get unbelievable and probably unprecedented access to how the war was run. The day the war started, we were briefed on the entire war plan, so we knew exactly what the Marines intended to do before they did it.
It truly was an international coverage of the war. We had embedded with us Al Jazeera, Al Herat, Abu Dhabi News, Times of London, Agence France Presse, and the world got to see the images come back of British and American warriors liberating the country.
Everyone sees war in movies and war on TV, but to actually be there and to smell it and to hear it, to feel it, it's a tremendous feeling. I mean, just to be sitting there when bombs are falling 1,000 meters away and shaking the ground around you, and to hear bullets pinging off the side of the Bradley that you're in, to smell the gunpowder of the guns as they're firing off back at the enemy. It's an amazing, amazing experience.